Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole elect of Israel. We Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, the Most High, the Heavenly Father. His Hebrew name is Yahweh. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua. It's Yahweh Shah. So we got to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elder bishops and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether concepted or not. In a sincere salutation to all the occupants, pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waiting on the hope for the elect. And shalom to the Aquath who are listening and learning, you few sisters who are listening and learning. I'm Isaiah from GMS Orlando Camp, coming into another lesson in truth, facts, faith, and edification. Another day of edification, Lord, will us be edifying. So this is, I don't know if I'm going to tie this lesson yet, but check this out. So this is what's going on. A brother sent me this clip earlier, and the brother Kazak Bunya Howard sent me this clip, and it was showing about how a whole police station in North Carolina, a little small town in North Carolina called Kinley. The whole police force gave their resignation. So, and I saw in this article about the fire that's burning in California. So I want to show you this. And when I read the article, one of the guys, at Job 9:24, had said something in the article, and it made me think about this. So let me show these clips first. Lord, wouldn't it be edifying? First and foremost, this is copyright disclaimer on the Section 107 Copyright Act 1976. It say the copyright disclaimer on the Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. You see it.
Back to the Oak Fire continuing to rage out of control in Mariposa County. That fire exploding in size, now almost at 12,000 acres. Crews struggling to gain ground on this blaze as there is still no containment right now. This quick-moving fire gave people living in evacuation areas very little time to pack up and leave. Reporter Nico Payne spoke with some of the evacuees just as firefighters moved in to try and save their homes.
Detweiler fire, Ferguson fire, and now this.
Mandatory evacuation orders for people living in the Mid-Pines area came shortly after the Oak Fire broke out Friday afternoon.
The sheriff's department came out and got our horses, and the Mariposa County SPCA, they take evacuations for smaller animals.
Some residents having to evacuate for the first time.
Told us that everybody's got to go. About 4 o'clock, the power went out, and the fire's been coming towards us faster and faster.
For fire crews battling the flames, the big concern has been spot fires. This spot fire breaking out shortly before 6 o'clock right off of Dara Road. In minutes, the hillside engulfed in flames. Evacuation centers now open for those who had to flee their homes.
If you have time, it's great to pack some essential items. So,
now remember, it said those that had to flee their homes. Remember that.
Medications, important documents, extra clothing, toiletries. We will make sure you have whatever you need here, but if you can pack those comfort items in advance, it makes your stay a lot more comfortable.
I'm hoping that they're able to get it out before it damages anybody's homes, but this doesn't look good.
Oak fire burns nearly 12,000 acres and forces thousands to evacuate. A wildfire raging for a second day Saturday in central California's Mariposa County outside Yosemite National Park has burned nearly 12,000 acres and forced thousands to evacuate from rural communities, officials said. The fire, which had 0% containment as of Saturday evening, began Friday in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada near the small community of Mid-Pines, roughly a 9-mile drive northeast of the county seat, the town of Mariposa, state fire officials said. Flames tore through trees and sent thick smoke into the sky Friday, and in at least one rural area burned close to homes and parked vehicles, video from CNN affiliates KFSN and KGO showed. Authorities came by and told us everybody's got to go, Wes Dedamore, a resident of the Mariposa Pines area, told KFSN Friday. Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency for Mariposa County after the fire forced more than 3,000 people to evacuate their homes, according to a news release from his office. Activating a state of emergency allows for additional resources to aid response to the fire. Electricity service in the area stopped Friday at about 4 p.m. local time, and the fire has been coming towards us faster and faster, Dedamore said. The fire has destroyed at least 10 structures and damaged another 5, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, known as CAL FIRE, said Saturday. The blaze is threatening 2,000 other structures, CAL FIRE said. It had burned 6,555 acres by Saturday morning, according to CAL FIRE. Fire activity was extreme, and emergency personnel were working to evacuate people and protect buildings, the department said. 11 fire crews with more than 400 personnel, as well as 45 fire engines and 4 helicopters, have been assigned to fight the flames, CAL FIRE said. Evacuations have been ordered for certain areas of Mariposa County south and east of the fire, as shown in an online map. The evacuation zones did not include the town of Mariposa. A Red Cross evacuation center has been established at an elementary school in Mariposa, CAL FIRE said. The blaze comes as much of the U.S. has been experiencing an extreme heat wave this week, with parts of California seeing temperatures in the triple digits. Wildfires scorching the western U.S. in recent years have become more common due to worsening drought conditions fueled by climate change. In California alone, more than 2.5 million acres were burned in nearly 9,000 fires last year, according to CAL FIRE. Nick Smith told CNN his parents' home burned down as a result of the fire. His parents, Jane and Wes Smith, lived in their Mariposa home for 37 years, he said. It's pretty sad to see the house that I grew up in and was raised in gone, he said.
You see, that's the point I want to make. This guy who we were talking about, Nick, right here, let me see. They had his name on the screen. Let's run it back. Right here, he said, this guy Nick. It said, yeah, according to CAL FIRE, Nick Smith told CNN his parents' home burnt down as a result, right? In the article I was reading, this what caught my attention. In the article, he said that his parents had to leave out with just the clothes that they had on their back, right? That's all they had, what they had on. And he said his mother had time to save their horses. But you saw that other Job 9:24 lady mention about their horses. The people came and got their horses. So this is what he said. It said, Nick told CNN 37 years of memories, generations of family treasures, and countless more sentimental things are gone, right? He said, although these are materials, it is devastating to lose everything literally in the blink of an eye without notice. Guess what happened to so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians? They lost everything in the blink of an eye. Now I want to come out. I got a couple more clips. Let me show you this, because nobody remember this here.
When we look at what it takes to be an American, I think you find no better example than right here in New York with its own free black communities, in which they defined what it meant to be an American, even when the law and the government did not see them as such. One of the first free black communities in New York is Seneca Village. 1825, and that, of course, is pre-emancipation when we're talking about New York specifically. Slavery ends in New York in 1827.
So a group of African Americans who were affiliated with the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, they were the first to buy property in this area that became known as Seneca Village.
Daily life in Seneca Village would have been impacted by racial violence on a daily basis. They lived in an integrated community, so while it was a free black community, they had among them Irish neighbors and some German neighbors too, and they intentionally placed themselves there.
Seneca Village comprised approximately 70 buildings. There was 3 churches. The first church to be created was the African Union Church. This church also did have a school, and it was one of the few schools that was available for African American students. So it helps us understand Seneca Village as a place where community and church and education was very important.
I would say one of the more famous residents, if you will, was Albro Lyons. He actually lived in Lower Manhattan during the draft riots. And his daughter, Maritcha, who was a teenager at the time, she's the one who left her memoirs and really explained the horror that happened in Manhattan streets during the summer of 1863, when African Americans were basically being tortured and murdered by their fellow New Yorkers. In 1855, when the city starts thinking about a public space that will be called Central Park, they decide that Seneca Village has no value and said we would have more value if we became a public space, and we will call that public space Central Park. Of course, it really had nothing to do with that community or upholding what that community stood for.
You know, it was about 800 acres of land, and while it was not the first example of the use of eminent domain, it was certainly a prominent example. But it is certain that, you know, the creation of the park did really disrupt the development of what was one of the city's most important African American communities.
Within 30 years, Seneca Village is basically established, thrives, and evaporates completely.
So there are not a lot of physical traces of Seneca Village in the landscape. Since about 1997, a group of historians and archaeologists have been studying Seneca Village.
Portraits and illustrations, and we found a map that actually had the names of individuals that we didn't know that was in our collection, that helped us to understand, oh, this is why these people are there. And then from there, those names on the map, we could connect to the census records, and then we could find out for sure that these were actually black folk and white folk, and they actually owned their property. They weren't squatters, and so it was just telling a different kind of story.
They found such magical things that I think tell a story of a really dignified, thriving African American community. It's through their efforts that we know so much more about Seneca Village.
We collected these things and we tried to interpret them to see if they dated to the period of Seneca Village, and so they did. And you look at the newspapers, you look at the maps, you look at the title deeds, you look at family papers, and you just kind of piece that together like, okay, so this is telling an interesting story. How can we bolster this story? How can we humanize it a little bit more?
There's no descendants that have been found from Seneca Village, and it's not from lack of trying. My suspicion is to do with the amount of time that Seneca Village existed for. It existed through to 1855-57. For whatever reason, like so many things in history, we lose them to the archives, but not for lack of trying.
We are in a search. We're on a hunt to try to find direct descendants who are connected to this story, because again, it's just one of those things that will humanize and, you know, put a nice punctuation mark, an exclamation at the end of the story.
If you look at the history and the rediscovery of Seneca Village, there is a pattern here, and the pattern is this: the city always erases history. That's what it does. It does so in the name of New York, in the name of progress. And I think it's really important that ordinary people, ordinary New Yorkers, ordinary Americans understand that it's always been other ordinary Americans who have preserved their own communities, even if it means forgetting about that community and then rediscovering them again decades later.
So yeah, I just want to show that, because everybody forget about what happened to so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians homes. And they had to flee with just what they had on. So welcome. Welcome.
California are ordering the evacuation of more than 6,000 people. The fast-moving Oak Fire, which only began on Friday afternoon, growing into one of California's largest wildfires of the year. The flames now burning out of control outside of Yosemite National Park, the third wildfire there in the last 2 weeks. Officials saying it's threatening 2,000 structures. The blaze already consuming homes and businesses. Explosions could be seen after flames reach propane tanks. California officials saying the explosive fire behavior is challenging firefighters. The flames finding ample fuel thanks to the region's extreme drought. Those nightmarish conditions on the ground so intense, the Oak Fire can be seen from the International Space Station. The oppressive heat in the west now reaching across the nation. Major cities in the northeast with heat alerts. The rising temperatures impacting tens of millions. We'll get the latest forecast from Rob Marciano in a moment. But first, here's Alex Brachet leading us off from the fire zone.
Tonight, the dangerous Oak Fire in Mariposa County, California, burning out of control, engulfing homes and devouring cars. Some people trapped inside their homes.
7 people in a residence unable to get out. They're stuck in the residence and cannot escape.
We have about 9,500 acres that are burning and we're 0% contained. So the fire is actually growing as we speak.
More than 6,000 residents forced to evacuate.
As people are scrambling to get their stuff together, it's pretty difficult, and it only appears, it's going to get drier, hotter.
More than a dozen structures damaged. Nearly 400 firefighters deployed to combat the inferno from the ground and the air. Those firefighters battling nightmarish conditions in an area where exceptional drought already drives wildfires, local temperatures soaring into the 90s today, and dry brush making the region a tinderbox. The billowing smoke from the massive fire clearly visible from the International Space Station as it orbited above.
Look at this. All of this done in a little more than 24 hours. Thousands and thousands of acres burned.
It's the third wildfire in Mariposa County in just the last 2 weeks, one of which threatened the iconic sequoia trees in Yosemite National Park. Firefighters there quickly controlling the blaze to protect the ancient trees.
Wait, this is probably the best vantage point for this giant plume behind me that is the Oak Fire, still 0% contained. And year to date, this is the most...
See, that's why I tell you in Isaiah 14 that the trees is going to rejoice when these devils go down, man. In Isaiah 14, the trees is going to rejoice when these devils go down, man. Because this shouldn't be happening.
Acreage burned across the U.S. in more than a decade. Usually this time of year, we have about 3.2 million acres burned. This year, that number stands at 5.5 million acres. Wait, really puts these fires into perspective, Alex. Thank you. Tonight, more than 85 million Americans are under heat alerts, and the rising temperatures are proving deadly. Officials in South Dakota say a 20-year-old hiker died in Badlands National Park after running out of water. Major cities in the Northeast seeing their...
How you going to a park? How you going to a park to do whatever, jog or whatever, and you don't prepare yourself with enough water? Judgment of Yahweh Shema Shah.
Hottest weekend of the year. New York opening up cooling centers to help residents without air conditioning find some relief. The heat also fueling severe storms in parts of the country. Let's get right to ABC's senior meteorologist Rob Marciano. And Rob, we could hit some new records as well.
Yeah, we already did in some spots. Albany hit 97 degrees. That's a record. But tomorrow across the Northeast, it's going to be even worse. I think maybe over a dozen records will be set. Here are some of the numbers with the humidity, what things will feel like in Boston, 101.5, in Philly, 104, in D.C., in the Mid-South and the Central Plains, still feeling the heat there. But the Northeast, it measured in the shade without the humidity, 98 in D.C., 98 in Philly, heat warning up there all the way up into New England. Where's the relief? It's with a front that's now about to push into Chicago. Flood watch up there, some severe thunderstorm watches up for Wisconsin. That gets into Ohio and northern New York and northern New England tomorrow with damaging winds and large hail. That eventually pushes through the Northeast on Monday, and that does bring some relief to at least the eastern half of the country on Tuesday.
We'll have to hunker down a bit longer. All right, Rob, thanks.
Hey, the Lord heating this place up, man. That's why the Lord showed John the Revelator that North America gonna be a lake of fire, man. This place is heating up before the missiles get here. It's heating up, man. And it's only going to get worse. These are judgments. This is prophecy.
We begin tonight with the latest on the Oak Fire. Governor Gavin Newsom issued a state of emergency for the Oak Fire burning in Mariposa County. This is happening near Yosemite National Park. Thousands of people have been ordered to leave their homes. And tonight we have team coverage tracking the Oak Fire. Meteorologist Carly Gomez is tracking the wind and moisture impacting the spread of this fire. But first, we'll start with ABC 10's John Bartel, who's in Mariposa with the latest on the Oak Fire evacuation efforts in the area.
Yeah, so right now we're at the evacuation center, and that's here at the Mariposa Elementary School. And as you can see, several people have come here. They've got tents out. Several people out here walking their dogs. About 42 residents from the area have come to this area. Red Cross here providing a number of services here. We got bathrooms, food, but right here, right behind us here, you can see the smoke, and right over the hill here, there's two communities of concern. This is Jersey Dale and Lush Meadow. Now, these are in some pretty remote areas. There's small homes, communities separated throughout the canyon in this area, and the fire has just really devastated this area. And we actually ran into several people who had stayed behind. One in particular, we ran into him right as he was trying to remove some of the last bit of brush around his house. Take a listen.
This is our home. I feel like we're gonna do what we can to at least have a chance.
Fire crew's main concern here right now is actually just getting to a lot of these homes. This terrain is just really tough. It's hard to get these big trucks up these steep hills, and they are expecting winds to pick up a little bit tonight, and that really is not going to help them at all here. But here at the evacuation center, they are welcoming anyone and everyone, and they are expecting more people to come here and take advantage of that food, some of these services. If you have lost your home, it can help you get through a lot of that. John Bartel out here in Mariposa.
Our John Bartel reporting. Thank you, John. Now let's check out for the smoke coming from the Oak Fire making its way through the Sierra. Our own Becca Hopperter took this video this morning. This is along I-80 near the Kingvale exit. And Carly Gomez, what's the air quality looking like?
So, there you have it, man. What's going down? Judgment. As again, what caught my attention, because Nick said, he told them, let's play it again.
As a result of the fire, his parents, Jane and Wes Smith, lived in their Mariposa home for 37 years, he said. It It's pretty sad to see the house that I grew up in and was raised in gone, he said.
You see? Now, what is that called? It's called generational, some form of generational wealth, man. 37 years. Guess what? None of us can say that, man. That we grew up in a house that our parents had for 37 years, man. You might have a few of them, Jake. Few so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians that can say that. Not many, man. Because we don't have generational wealth. We don't have power. And our problem is not with money. We have a sovereignty problem, man. So I just had a couple precepts I want to read. This is 2nd Ezra 5 and 8. There shall be a confusion also in many places, which these devils bring confusion everywhere they go. And the fire shall be often sent out again, and the wild beasts shall change their places. Seeing all these places being destroyed with fire, or they cutting down the trees, building shopping malls, condominiums, and plazas. But what happened to the animals, man? To the wild beasts? Well, they changed their places. And that's what down here in Florida is real bad. Black bears is approaching up on people's porches in their garbage cans looking for food, man. Because these devils cut down the trees. So here you got California always on fire. And it's a heat. It's real bad with heat, man. Okay, heat wave is going everywhere, man. That's the Lord. So now these animals got to change places because they either get burnt out and they got to flee their habitation, or the trees getting cut down and they still got to flee. But it all goes back to this devil, man. To Esau Edom, the so-called white man. Because of his wicked rulership in the earth, man. So again, 2nd Ezra 5 and 8. There shall be a confusion in many places, and the fire shall be often sent out again. And the wild beasts shall change their places, and mistress women shall bring forth monsters. And that's what we see today. Mistress women bringing forth monsters. These are little thugs and little gangsters. These little killers. These are monsters. Okay? That's been growing up with no fathers in the house, and they wilding. But the point is, the fire shall be often sent out, and wild beasts shall change their places. Why? Because of either by fire or this devil cut down the trees and they pushing them out. Either way, they got to flee their habitation. Just like we had to flee our habitation in 70 AD because of the curses, because of sins. Well, guess what the Lord said? In Deuteronomy 30 and 7, it reads, and Yahweh, thy power, will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. So now we see these things are affecting the heathens, man. This is Luke 12 and 49. It reads, I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will I if it be already kindled? And we see different fires already kindled, man. But that fire the Lord is going to bring is going to be through those intercontinental ballistic missiles. And then when the Messiah returns with the chariots going to be shooting laser beams, man. Okay? But we see the fire is often sent out now. And wild beasts is changing their places. And these people talking about they got to flee. We had to flee. Welcome to the bottom. Now you see how I feel to have only the clothes that you have on your back, man. That's the Lord. See, the pride of these devil heart have deceived them. Now the Lord is showing them who has real power. Okay? And like they did with Seneca Valley. In other places, man. California, in Compton. These different places. Predatory lending and redlining, man. Taking Jake Holmes away. Through predatory lending. Giving Jake's loans they know that they can't pay. Okay? Taking Jake Holmes through redlining, man. These devils got to pay for this stuff, man. They got to pay for it. So I saw that clip and thought about, and when I was reading the article, and the guy said his family, his mom and pop had to leave their house with just the clothes they had on, but they was able to get their horses out. Okay, you see, y'all been living good. Everybody can't afford no horses, man. or the feed that come with feeding the horses. They talking about 37 years. And it's the spirit that I found in the video that they mentioned this guy, the son, Nick Smith. Yeah. They lost all these, what he said? He said 37 years of memories, generations of family treasures, and countless more sentimental things destroyed. Although these are materials, it is devastating to lose everything literally in the blink of an eye without notice. Let's read what Yahushua said in Luke 21. Because that same thing happened to so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. This is Luke 21 and 21. It reads, Luke 21 and 20, and when you shall see Jerusalem come past her armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, which we did, so-called Negroes, Jamaicans, and Haitians, so-called. We had to flee different parts of Africa, Spain, Europe, Portugal, okay, Scotland. We were scattered through all these places, man. We had to flee. Why? Because of the so-called white man, the Romans that came in. It say, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in this land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Even though we did get to flee and ran into different parts of Africa, around the world, what happened? We still got put on slave ships and still came to Babylon the Great, North America, man. It's saying, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, the ones that didn't get away, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This is the Messiah saying that Negroes, Jamaicans, and Haitians, Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians going to be led away captive into all nations. The Messiah said that we will go into captivity. The Most High Yahweh already said in Deuteronomy 28. We was going to go into slavery by ships. Deuteronomy 28 and 68, man. So we don't want to hear about your sorrows, man. Talking about, well, we got the clothes on our back. We don't want to hear that, man. We've been dealing with this for hundreds of years, man. Hundreds. Well, you get to be raised up in a house that your great-grandfather had. Your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father and mother lived in. You grew up in a house that was there for 37 plus years. We don't want to hear your sorrows, man. It's the Lord wills edifying. Gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. Bahashem Yahushua. Bahashem Rikah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, ready to accept it or not. And the sincere salutation to all the occupants pushing this truth and believing this truth. But the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hope from the elect. Shalom to the Agua who are listening learning. The few sisters who are listening learning. Lord was edifying. Till next time, I say Shalom. Wa Ba. So-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians, we raised up. I grew up in Mississippi in the country. Okay? In houses. The Lord, blessed me to do that. Everybody ain't had that, man. And it wasn't no house for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Well, my great-grandfather, we still dealing with family land house. But most jig ain't get to grow up like that, man. Living in the cities, in apartments. Okay? Going from one place to another. Definitely not now because rent going up, man. Everybody ain't get to live like this, man. And people supposed to be sorry for these type of people. Nobody's sorry for you, man. But this is the Lord. Call out Yahweh Shema Shai. Because this is the Lord showing us that he's destroying Babylon the Great, man. He's destroying Babylon the Great and their generational wealth, man. Okay? That white privilege, so that Edomite privilege is being destroyed, man. Yahweh Shema Shai is deteriorating it, man. From the inside out. Shalom. Wa Baba Ball.